Set to return to the Market Theatre from next week. We'll preview that for you in a few moments. No doubt a number of our viewers know the following phrases: ons gaan nergens, ons polai, or you would have heard ons dakni, ons polai. These was just some of the words of resistance that were used by black people at a time when the apartheid government used draconian laws to, at will, move people, and at times, if not often, forcefully at that. Sophia Town captures the story of not just these words of resistance, but what happened in that time. So we are joined in studio to take a look at the play, which will be at the Market Theatre from next week, by cast members Terence Ngwila and Gabby Georgeson, as well as director Aubrey Sikabi, to tell us more about what you can expect for this play. Thank you very much to all our guests for joining us this morning. Perhaps let's start with you, and you can tell us about the return of the play this year.
Yes, we're excited for Sophia Town to be back 37 years later at the Market Theatre in the John Kani Theatre with a new cast, with a live band. So it's going to be exciting. There's going to be music, there's going to be jazz, there's going to be stories. So it's kofifi. So, and it's relevant, we think, today, 30 years into a democracy. As we're celebrating that, it's also important that we look back in our stories, and we also celebrate our South African classical plays. So I think it's an important piece of work. It's an exciting work, so we're excited that we're back.
A live band, so looking forward to that. Gabby, introduce your character to our viewers without giving away too much.
All right, so my character is Ruth Golden. She finds a advertisement in the Drum magazine. Wanted a Jewish girl needed to live in Sophia Town for study purposes. So she just shows up at a shebeen with her bags, and the rest is history.
Okay. And then, Terence, I beg your pardon, Aubrey, you can introduce your character to our viewers without giving away too much.
Yeah, it's Terence, by the way.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, my character, I play Mingus. Mingus is a gangster, you know, neighborhood gangster from then, very violent man who for him, his form of survival or making it in that neighborhood was committing crime. So yeah, that's the character that I play. Yeah.
Where did you have to go to find that?
To find the character, I had to go on the internet, you know, also just do a bit of research, you know, neighborhoods, you know, follow these popular stories in the hood, you know, with gangsters and all of that. So that's why I had to draw from. And mostly I had to find inspiration from real events, you know, things that do happen in South Africa. And that's what really helps me kind of like find the character.
Gabby, where did you have to go to find to bring the character to life, essentially?
So I kind of based her off like a Disney princess type situation where, you know, she's very light and asks a lot of questions and just, you know, holds herself a bit differently, and also has to try find a way to communicate with people that she's never had the opportunity to communicate with before. So again, looking at, you know, history books and understanding, you know, where they were at the time, that type of thing. Yeah.
Aubrey, sir. And so when you take a look at that era, if it wasn't the fashion, if it wasn't the shebeens, which some of the journalists at the time changed the wording, didn't even call them shebeens, but call them by specific code names, and you look at the music, you mentioned the jazz element, what are the themes that you are wanting to bring about, more so when you speak about how relevant the play is as we celebrate democracy in 2024?
When the whole question of land displacement, people being moved from their place, you know, taken somewhere where you don't really want to be. So you look at that in terms of displacement and say, why you do this play today? You do this play so that we hope not to commit the same mistakes ever again. I think also for you to have this racism, for you to have this Jewish girl coming into this space and being having to learn about all these people, and when things start happening, when the removals start happening, the tensions mounts, they're starting to say, yeah, it's your people that are moving out of here. Do something about it. So it's just how people relate with each other. You look at the question of crime. When you look at the question of crime, the gangsterism, you know, paying protection fee. And you look at today, when you have the construction mafias, you still have the levels of crime rising, and you say, wow, this is not different. You look at the gender-based violence that we are experiencing today, and you look back then, Mingus, you know, is living in his mother's house, he's got his girlfriend there, but he's beating her up, he's verbally abusing her. So all these things are rearing their head, and you can find them in Sophia Town. That was done so many years ago, and you still look at our situation today, and you see that there's a lot that really needs to change.
Terence, there'll be young people who are, where this is part of their curriculum,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so when they come and they watch you and they see this character of Mingus, what should they keep in mind? More so, some of them based off of what Mr. Aubrey is saying about the lived realities still in 2024, where it would appear that not much has changed.
Yeah, I think I would love for them to learn from what Mingus is. You know, I'd love for him to be a reflection of what not to do, you know, of what situations not to find themselves in, you know, because it's very tricky, because he's also a very lovable character, you know, and you kind of like caught in between, you know, some of the students loving Mingus, you know, and some of them hating them, you know, but you never want them to find themselves liking this guy after all the things that he's doing. I hope that they find some sort of identities within Mingus that kind of like helps them through their situations. You might find that there's people who are being abused, you know, and they can't really pinpoint it. And I hope that the character kind of like shows them and shines a bit more light for them through the show.
Gabby, this must have been also a learning curve for you. What did you discover in the process?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. It doesn't matter, even if it's down to one word, you know, keep learning, keep trying to understand, find similarities, and just, yeah, bond with each other.
Sure.
Not all that different.
Right. Mr. Aubrey, sir, again, young people will be brought to the theatre in their numbers, because for some of them, this is part of the curriculum. And so when you take a look at some of the themes that are being brought about or brought into the fore, what is it that you want young people to walk away with more so?
I think understanding where we come from. I think it's important for young people to know where we come from, so that they can also, when they get into leadership and all that, they don't really commit the same mistakes. But also to say that there was once this time where we could really live together, where we could be in the same place and enjoy the same music and dance together and talk politics. I think you want them to understand that there was a time when that could happen, and that could still happen today. But of course, our music, our dance, our culture, our stories, I think they're important for young people to understand.
Gabby, what did you learn about the music of the time, the fashion of the time, the women of the time?
It was actually really interesting, because especially in Sophia Town, the women characters are so strong, each of them. They each tell their own story. You got Mama Riti, who's a single mother running her own business, Princess, who is living through this very tricky living situation with Mingus, and Lulu, who's just trying to find school, you know, and then the clothing and the music just kind of helps get you in that mindset, in that time period, and it really is something magical.
Sure. Terence, you mentioned that Mingus is also like a lovable character. Yes, he's got issues, you know, but he's also a lovable character. Do you find that sometimes the beast can be a little bare inside, right? Did you have to bring that out for the audience?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think within everyone there is that like glimmer of hope. You know, there is a bit of light in them. You know, I don't believe that everyone is just entirely terrible. You know, I feel like there are certain instances in life that kind of like project you to the wrong direction. And I feel like that's your choice to decide which path you take, you know. And I think with Mingus, that light, that small light that is within him is what people like about the character, you know. And like you're saying, with every beast, there's a bit of a bear in there, you know, and all of this is a facade, you know. They are trying to protect that glimmer of light within them, and then they can't help to let it like die out. And the only way they know how to protect it is by just being this terrible person, you know. Maybe because he probably didn't receive the kind of nourishment that he wanted, maybe he he experienced things at a young age. You know, maybe his mom was a perfect woman, you know, and he just grew up around the wrong crowd of people, which can happen. You know, you find that your family is good, you've got good friends, and then you just bump into the wrong situation at the wrong time, and that just projects your whole life, you know. So I think, yeah, I think that's what people will like, because it's a very relatable character. You know, it's easy for people to find themselves in those situations, especially if you're not careful.
Your environment, and then your parents are asking themselves, I did everything for you. How can you turn out like this? But when it comes to the aesthetics, what can we expect to see, right? So you speak of the fashion of the time, you're speaking of a live band, which would be so delicious, but the set as well, the lighting, what can we expect?
I think we got a lot of young people working on the production. Lungi, who designed the set for us, and you know, we wanted a set that we can do things on, that we could be able to transform into many things, which I cannot give away, but we see what the set does for us. The costumes also by a young person and young people that have just designed the costumes. And you know, it's not as easy as it used to be able to source out costumes from back in the day. So you really have to hustle to come up with that.
What's going on
because
there?
you don't they are all, I mean, getting the actual thing, I mean, you have to really go deep and look and find the fashion. So you really try and get as close as possible to what has been. The dance, you know, we're working with Bafikile Sidibe, you know, who's an established choreographer. So just trying to get the movement and make it easy, but really make it so reliable. And music, working with Vakela Mabena, just genius, and Simpues Kakani, who just brings in all those harmonies and all those melodies. So it's really what you will find in terms of just looking at but also how we're using space there, you know, because remember, the houses were so small and there's all these people. I mean, you look into that Shebeen, there's journalists staying in there, there's a Fafi runner staying in there, then she comes, and there's Minga's sister, Princess, Charlie, who's always following Minga. So it's all this small space that you really have to make sure that you can use it and still be able to give a good experience.
Sure. It sounds like also much, but also it sounds like a lot of deliciousness. Gabby, when you take a look maybe at what we are not exposed to, so when you are doing rehearsals, how has that been going?
Honestly, I love rehearsals. We've really created quite a little family amongst all of us, of all positions everywhere. Like, we just really love each other. So we can't wait to perform, so we get to at least spend a few more hours with each other. It's really,
and that translates on stage.
It really
when you
does.
are like a family unit behind the scenes. And so, Terence, maybe just in closing up, more so for the characters, your word maybe to people who are looking forward to coming through, not maybe even just for expectations, but just what is it that you want people to know?
I think this is a show that needs to be seen, you know, by the world, by South Africans, you know, by everyone, you know, because it's very relevant, even with what's happening now, you know, with wars happening, with people being displaced, you know, all around the world. I think it's a must-see for everyone, you know. It will give a lot of insight for a lot of people, and I think it's worth it.
Mr. Skabi, so how much of you did you have to bring when you were directing?
How much?
Because it's been 37 years, and so there's been different directors, I'm assuming. And so how much of you did you have to bring?
I think quite a bit. I love the script. I like the work. I think it's well written. It's all there. But I wanted it to be a little bit fast, so I brought a little bit of pace. But I wanted some playfulness so that the people could really enjoy, and for them to be in a space and feel like I'm in this forum. And growing up in Soshanguve in a forum house, you know what it means to be witching around small spaces and living in a small space. So I think I also brought that into the play, and just growing up in the 80s and when the struggle was at its peak, really, and understanding the language of the struggle, I think I brought that, and I think the musicality. You know, we grew up in the 80s. You hear about Gibson Kente, so you watching all that work of Gibson Kente. You understanding music, you understanding dance. So I think I also brought that. I quite brought a bit of myself in the production.
You're looking so forward to it. Maybe also, Mr. Sakabi, as we wrap up, a word to the teachers, because we've spoken to the young ones that will be watching, but the teachers who will be marking this, more so on interpretation. I mean, you are the head teacher, I guess, here. So when your students bring their own interpretation, are they allowed to?
Yeah, I think they are allowed to, but I think it's so strong that it's all there. You know, that's why we don't even change one word.
Okay.
We just left everything there in the script. But you see what happens actually when because we're doing it for the third or fourth time. When students come there, you find there are kids that actually know it all and they're saying all the words with the actors as the actors are saying it. Some are really having the books there. But what's important is that when the play happens and you see all this tragedy happening at the end, you find that the students are crying. And the moment you see them crying, you know that they're understanding what you're telling. They're understanding the story that is being told. But I think the interpretation is just right there. The work is so well created.
Oh, yes, details in terms of dates, ticket prices, etc.
We start on the 27th of February and we're running until the 24th of March. You can find tickets at web tickets or it all in Pick and Pay stores.
Okay,
Yes.
Godspeed, and thank you so much for coming through this morning. Really looking forward to seeing this. Terence Ngwila, thank you. Gabby Georgeson and Director Aubrey Sikabi, thank you very much to our guests. Do stay with us. More news for you in a few minutes.